So come on, why don't you join me on the journey as we look to understand the Linux boot process? What actually happens when we hit that big power button? Well, the very first thing that's going to occur is looking for the BIOS or UEFI firmware on the system. That's going to have the location of our bootable disk. From there, we can look for loading our bootloader. Now, this might be Grub, the Grand Unified bootloader, or another bootloader, but this will load the kernel, the operating system, in memory. From here, systemd, which on modern Linux systems is our initialization system that starts to manage our services and targets. A target is the run level that we want to go to, such as a command line for a server, or maybe on a desktop, the graphical desktop. The kernel is going to load the drivers to access our hardware, which is going to include things like our disk drivers, our disk controllers, our network cards. We can then mount our file systems, and with the file system mounted, we're going to be able to locate our services that need to be started. So systemd then can continue to load those services to the defined target, our command line environment or our desktop environment. So who's going to join me as we go through and investigate how long it takes to boot a system? We know we're all going to say it took hours, but how long did it really take? And welcome to our glorious Pixel Playground, or otherwise known as our Ubuntu 24.04 desktop. Now we know we can open up the terminal by right-clicking on our desktop and choosing the Open in Terminal. But let's not do that. We already know that. Let's look at another shortcut to opening. So I just click back on my desktop and I'm going to use Control, Alt and T. Control, Alt and T is a shortcut to open up the terminal. And we can see we've got our terminal open, and let's see how long it took to boot. So systemd analyze is then giving me the information. Reviewing the information, we can see that the kernel loaded in 3 seconds, user space services in 4.4 seconds, and we can also see that the graphical target, and that would mean the login screen to the desktop environment, was reached after 4.4 seconds of our user space services. But if we had a longer time, we can look at systemd analyze and blame. Don't look at blame too negatively, though. It's just using the tool to show you services that took the longest time to start. We can see that it took 47 seconds for the daily upgrade service to start. That's a network-based service. However, it didn't prevent us from logging in. As we then go through our list, we can see that most services started pretty quickly. So this is a glorious tool to be able to analyze the boot process. Just use the letter Q to quit and Control and L to clear the screen and exit to close the terminal.